I would say I don't understand why we're considering decommissioning and haven't paid the fees that they owe us. If they don't want to pay us, then we should stop work on the decommissioning until they do pay us. And finally, I don't think that we should move forward on their application. If they're not going to pay us, we should give them a period of time to determine and give them a deadline on the fees. And if they choose not to pay those fees, we should withdraw the application involuntarily and let it start anew if they want to start anew.
Thank you. Marguerite Wells?
Marguerite Wells, 863 H Road. Just wanted to say I'm looking forward to hopefully concluding this work on decommissioning bonds so we can get to those supplemental EIS, which we've been looking forward to addressing for a long time. Thanks very much.
Marcus Gingrich.
Marcus Gingrich, 101 Rumsey Hill Road. Yeah, you know, it's I feel like I'm repeating myself. It's really helpful when documents that are going to be, or resolutions that are going to be voted on, get out to the public ahead of time so we can actually look at them. I know that the resolution didn't get passed in the decommissioning last time, and I looked on the website to see if there was an update. I saw it was on the agenda, but on the website, the only thing I could find was the old one. So I thought, well, maybe it's just being brought up again, but then when I get here, I see there's now an edited version. So I really haven't had a chance to even look it over to see what changes have been proposed, what changes are going to be made, and that makes it a little hard for me to give any input. There's some things on the old one that I really kind of questioned, but yeah, it would be really helpful, I think, not only for board members, and maybe you guys get them, you know, sooner than we do, but particularly for the public if we had a chance to actually look at things a couple of days ahead of time. I won't belabor what Jude said about the expenses. It does seem a little peculiar to me that the process, yeah, I'm just not quite sure what's happening with and what the recourse is when Black Oak doesn't pay its bills to the town. It's in violation of the law. Is that just going to be let go? I don't know.
Ron Riddle.
Ron Riddle, 235 Harvey Hill Road. What I wanted to talk about was some of the letters that are just going to be reviewed today, or was there something?
That's the subject of the meeting tonight.
So, my suggestion is with the letters is that I feel the same way about the letters that I do about signs that I see for the wind farm or against it, but mostly for it, all the way down into Ithaca. And my thought is there should be some sort of hierarchy, like priority hierarchy where it's numbered, there's a number system, like depending on how many miles away from the wind turbine somebody lives, and them writing a letter, like say someone, you know, right outside of Ithaca writes a letter for it, you know, saying how great it is, and of course they don't live, you know, next to it. So I don't really think that their letter should have the same validity as someone who, a homeowner who's actually going to be affected by it, who lives right next to it. So my suggestion is some sort of point system, you know, depending on how many miles away from the turbines they live. I think that's my suggestion. I actually have to leave in a few minutes, but how late is the meeting going? Do we have any idea?
9 o'clock.
Okay, I might be able to come back for some other tour. But at any rate, that's what I have to say.
Ask to add, an audit claim to the meeting. Buddy has asked that we approve the purchase of a piece of equipment that he has taken possession of and would like to pay the vendor prior to, so the vendor would not have to, wait at least 30 more days for his money. Does anyone recall the, piece of equipment that he was going to buy
Man
at
lift,
the auction?
a man lift.
Yeah. So I, would make the following motion that the town board authorizes the supervisor to pay highway fund voucher 147 dated 8/16/16 in the amount of $18,685.
18,000?
That's what the bill was.
Oh,
It's quite a man lift, isn't it?
that's a lot of money, yeah.
Well, what's that gonna do to our,
So that's just coming out of this equipment fund?
Yes. It'll be like all vouchers against a certain line.
Right,
Now, I don't know the line number
yeah.
because I didn't, right,
That's one of those things on wheels with the extension and,
I assume it makes you go up and brings it back down again. That would be a man lift.
yes, like the genies,
Yeah, it could be that, or it could be the kind that rolls around and it has the cross hatches and it just goes up in
I
place
hope that
and
would cost
down.
$18,000.
Place, yeah.
It's a used one, too.
I believe it is, there was a genie on the bill.
So it's an arm one.
Well, it means nothing to me.
And the wheels on it.
It had a capital G, E-N-I-E.
What if he'd let me borrow it?
I wonder what the heck is in front, I wonder why
Because he wants to be able to work up places. I mean, the building is tall, and it's definitely a plus to be able to work on heating systems and changing light bulbs and that kind of stuff, and whether it's worth $18,000 to be able to do that, I don't know.
step ladder.
Yeah, well, that's the idea. It's pretty tall, that's a awful tall step ladder, it's a 20-foot step ladder, so it's kind of getting up there. You wouldn't be able to work off it, you'd have to put a harness and a thing on and everything, but,
postage chair?
well, if you already bought it, we don't really have a lot of options anyways, right? Yeah, you haven't been seconded yet.
No, I have not been seconded.
Second, sorry.
And is there more discussion?
Should we be consulted before he spends a lot of money on a piece of equipment?
That's never been the, protocol.
I think if it's money that is in his budget and he has the right to spend it, then it makes sense to me to get a man lift. It seems like a lot of money, but, I haven't looked into the cost of man lift, so.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, the roads are down low, and I don't know why you need to go high, but, I can't imagine you bought it just to access the town barn. I don't know what else, if there's another use for it.
You can change light bulbs in the street lights, which are down at the town barn. You can work on things that are up on poles, which sometimes he does in relation to, town work and stuff. I know he's had to hire people to come in with man lifts and do things like that, and that can cost $500 at a time sometimes to do that. Assuming it's a good piece of equipment that's gonna last many, many, many years, it may well pay for itself, who knows, in 10 years or whatever.
And during the building of Magnolia House, I know TCA rented one
Yeah,
to do the solar on the roof and other things, because we had our people do it, and
Yeah.
I think it was over, by the time we got done doing what we had to do, $5,000 or more.
they're about $2,500 a month,
Yeah.
around there.
Other discussion?
I think our option probably has to do with how we do the budget at the end of the year. If we feel like we need to save money somehow, then we need to talk about it and say, we gotta figure out a way to save money. And so we'll have to limit equipment purchases, and in the end, he'll have to decide what's viable, what isn't. In the end, he doesn't own the equipment, the town owns the equipment, so we have to make that choice as to whether or not the equipment is thing we wanna have or not.
A previous protocol is that, since I've been on the board, there's little discussion of highway purchases. They are sometimes put forth in the budget request for the coming year, and I did not bring that with me tonight.
We're not quite in budget season yet.
No, we're very close to the budget season, but I'm telling you prior practice. And after the discussion in the formulation of the next year's budget, large purchases are seldom discussed. They might be reported, but they're seldom discussed
Well,
with the board.
yeah, it seems to me that we probably need to pay more attention in the future to expenditures, because if highway department expenditures are between 60 and 80% of our budget, obviously that's a big part of it, and if that keeps increasing, then our taxes are going to keep increasing. And I know town people are concerned about that, and I think we are too, right?
Yeah.
So, we want to pay attention
Yeah.
to it. So.
This board didn't want to pass a budget override, so one was not passed, so
Okay.
we,
So we're going to have to pay lots of attention to the budget.
lots of attention to the budget. Now, some people feel it can be lowered, we'll find out in the next 2 months.
Well, it can be lower, right? It's a matter of what we're willing to
Yes, it could be lowered.
take off of,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah, the price was surprising. When you mentioned auction, I assume it's a used piece of equipment. I never priced one, but I wouldn't have thought a used one would be $18,000, but.
I'm not surprised that it is.
Huh.
That being a genie list, I'm not surprised that it is. 18,000. They rent them for $2,500, $3,000 a month, so if you could buy them for $20,000, I'm sure a lot of people would just buy them outright and not worry about putting them.
Can we rent ours?
Well, that's what I was wondering about, but I doubt we can.
I have to check on the
Insurance-wise,
legality
it
of
seems
that.
pretty iffy. I don't think we're in the business of being a rental agency or something. It'd be nice if we could.
Call the vote?
Councilperson Bryant?
Aye.
Councilperson Carpenter?
Aye.
Councilperson Anstine?
Aye.
Councilperson Miles?
Aye.
Supervisor Ryder?
Aye. Since Marguerite put forward the edits that were talked about, I put this on the agenda again tonight. The reason that, as it says in the resolution, there are many details to take care of prior to permitting, and this is one of the details that can be done much prior to permitting to be in place. It's a general, all-over mechanism for covering decommissioning costs. The precise amounts and the precise instruments are put forward to the board just prior to permitting, and I believe are subject to precise approval by the board. So what is before the board at this time is a general all-over mechanism for securitization of the decommissioning costs. I believe I asked the clerk to make copies for everyone? Or you all got it by email?
I have a copy and I got email.
Okay, so you're both. So, my understanding is that, Marguerite put forth, suggestions based on, verbal discussion at the last meeting. Does anyone want to put forward this resolution?
Can I ask a question first?
Sure.
Why wouldn't this be part of the decommissioning plan?
This is the broad, all-over mechanism for the securitization of decommissioning costs.
Exactly.
At the time of permitting, before the permit is physically issued, a precise plan with the absolute amount and the absolute vehicle has to be put forward.
A plan, right?
Yes.
So why isn't this going to be part of the decommissioning plan? This is not the decommissioning plan.
No, it isn't.
Why isn't this a part of the decommissioning plan? I mean, that's where it goes, that's what belongs, is in the decommissioning plan. Why would we be separating it out and dealing with it as a separate issue? That doesn't make sense.
Because this is the all-over mechanism that gives the wind farm the knowledge of what they have to have in order to get an actual permit.
Well, in order to get an actual permit, they also need to do a decommissioning plan.
Yes.
Right. So
Yes.
why isn't this part of the decommissioning plan? That's where it belongs, is with the decommissioning plan. If they want to get approval of a decommissioning plan, and we have right now a preliminary understanding of what the costs would be. We've talked about it. Black Oak knows that these costs seem reasonable. We know that the costs seem reasonable, but it's only just a small part of the decommissioning plan, which is called for in the local law, and which we have at least one draft version, although it doesn't have a date on it, from someone. It doesn't have anything that says who it's from. So we just have this thing that was given to us at one point that says decommissioning plan, which should include this securitization amounts and methodologies as part of it. So why wouldn't we be dealing with this as part of the decommissioning plan? I don't understand why it doesn't belong there.
Why you do it early and not late.
Why, yeah, because it should fit into the process of the decommissioning plan acceptance. I mean, it's part of the decommissioning plan, that's where it belongs. It's like,
This is the umbrella. This is the umbrella,
which is the umbrella?
the resolution before you.
No, this is only a small part of the decommissioning plan. This is, when you look at
Can you explain it a different way, Marguerite?
Sure, I would add that knowing what the financial instrument is, which is what specifically this is about, is necessary at this point in the process in order to build that into the plan in the first place. Timing-wise, financing requires us to know sooner rather than later. If the decommissioning plan itself doesn't happen for, I don't know, let's say 6 months, because that's how long it takes till we get there and the permits are ready and all the rest of that stuff, then so be it. But we need to know a lot sooner, i.e. now, which financial instrument, so that it can be put in place. It doesn't work for us to wait for 6 or 9 months before we know the answer to this question. That's why.
Can we can probably add this, resolution into the decommissioning plan?
Of course, you can pass it again. You can
Okay.
pass it 3 times.
It's just a component, but the details are critical in terms of timing.
The way I see it, all this is doing is just setting the amount and the mechanism
Yeah.
for the financing.
Yeah.
That's all it's doing.
Yeah,
It's not a
that's all
decommissioning
it's
plan.
doing.
It's all the town,
It's
basically-
not saying it's gonna be permitted.
It's just the town saying, this is the amount that we're
This is what
we're
we're, demanding.
Right, but it's missing lots of information. Under the wind law, it says, the method by which the decommissioning and restoration of cost funds will be kept current relative to increases and decreases in total decommissioning and restoration costs. That's not in here.
Yes, it is. It's in here 4 times, it'll be reviewed, it'll be reviewed. It
That's
can
the
be
method, it will be reviewed. That's not a method. That's a generalized statement saying that somebody will do something sometime. It's not a method. You talk to a lawyer and say, is that a legal statement? It will be reviewed? It means nothing. It doesn't answer this question for me in the least. The method by which the funds will be kept current relative to increases and decreases in total decommissioning and restoration costs. The manner in which the WTG will be decommissioned and the site restored. I mean, there is a lot of information in this decommissioning plan that's relevant. I don't understand. I mean, I'm hearing what Marguerite says, but I'm not understanding why this is relevant. I mean, are they feeling like we're going to suddenly double the amounts on them just offhandedly and say, well, now that you're 6 months down the road, we want twice as much money? We talked about this for a long time, and here we are with numbers that sound pretty good and so forth. So why not just go about your business and do it? Do the decommission plan, figure it out, put it in there. You know, if you want to get something done, do the thing and get it done and do it right and do it completely.
Marguerite?
I agree with you, Mike, that this is not a plan. There are lots of missing pieces. This is just the finance piece. It is just the numbers and the mechanisms. But as I said, this, without getting too far down into the weeds of wind farm finance, I will tell you that we need to know the mechanism now in order to put it in place that many months from now. It takes time, it takes planning, it takes building into the entire finance portfolio of how it goes together. So it doesn't make sense to do this 9 months from now when we actually need it. We need this information now so that we can make a plan six months from now to actually move forward.
So this is more like a financial instrument.
This is a financial instrument. This instructs how the rest of the thing can even work. And without this information, we can't pay our town bills. I would like to pay our town bills. If we get this done, that frees up money to move forward in ways that we can get our bills paid.
Well, I definitely don't disagree with your argument. I understand what you're saying. I just think it's bad practice to take things that are important, pull them into pieces, and do approvals on them in different places and different times and different things, and then hope that when you get all to the end of the whole thing, you've actually made a coherent piece of paper.
How does this interfere with the demand for a more precise decommissioning plan at permitting time? How does this interfere or negate or...
Okay, so we're going to do a dog law, okay? We're going to have a law that says if your dog is out loose running around, we have certain rights within the state structure and the county structure to do things with that dog. So we sit down and we say, what are we going to fine people when their dogs are out and we catch them loose? And we say, well, let's fine them $100. And okay, let's do that. And then if we have to put them down, we'll pay for the cost of putting them down. So let's make a resolution that says, whenever we get a stray dog, we're going to charge people $100 for that stray dog. We don't have a law yet that says people can't have stray dogs. We just have a resolution that says it's $100 if we catch a stray dog. It's disconnected from the process by which it is supposed to be relating to the thing. And it's not to me, sensible to pull these things apart. I understand what Marguerite is saying, I understand the point of it. You certainly can look at it from that direction. I'm coming at it from another direction and saying, if you look at the parts of the whole, you're gonna just like the 7 people with the elephant, you're gonna think it's a trunk, or you're gonna think it's ears or whatever. If you look at these statements, if you look at these environmental impact statements and final environmental impact statements, and you read one page over here and it says, well, this is true completely and there's no other thoughts to it. And you go to the back of the thing and it says, well, no, that wasn't true at all. This is actually what's true over here. And it disagrees with itself in many places, just in the statement itself. But it's this huge statement with all these different parts and pieces, and nobody ever read it enough to put it together, the fact that said, well, wait a minute, over here they say this, and over here they say that. Where's this is discontinuous with each other. My concern is that in a body like this, in a situation like this, if you start taking bits and pieces of resolutions and laws and plans and stuff and approving them bit by bit here and there, I don't think we have the competency or the discipline to go back and look at these things and say, okay, now how does this fit into here and how does that fit into there? We're going to say, oh, well, we already did that. We don't need to do that part of it. All we got to do is this part over here. And yet we didn't go back and look to see that these two parts are completely disingenuous with each other. They don't fit into each other and how they're going to work. My concern is that it may well not work out that way, but you're asking for it to work that way. Just like if you say, well, you start the building over here, and that guy's going to start the building over there, and let's meet in the middle on the same line, you know? Well, yeah, maybe you will, but maybe you won't, too, and you're 3 feet off, and you say, well, what happened?
So we've got a wind farm law that demands certain things.
It does, yeah.
Isn't that the umbrella?
Yeah, don't you understand what I'm saying, though?
I don't, no. This is another umbrella under the umbrella.
This is a piece of the umbrella, and it's keeping the rain off on this side, but it's not keeping the rain off on that side. I'd like to put the umbrellas together so that it actually keeps the rain off us as well. And I don't know that in the future we're going to take this thing, which is piecework at best, and put it together with this thing, which is another piece of piecework at best, and come out with something that actually makes sense, that we can vote on and say, oh, this is good.
Well, why wouldn't it?
Why wouldn't it? Why should it? Who's going to make it?
It's a plain white sheet of paper that you put words in.
Right, and who's going to make all the words fit together with all the other words? Who's going to make sure that happens?
I thought that's why we had to hire lawyers.
Oh, the lawyers, yeah, they do just what we need. That doesn't happen, Ann. Not in my understanding and not in my dealing with the world. Engineers, architects, lawyers, all those people, they sit in their own little boxes and they say, well, this is what I know about this and that's what I know about that, and they're fine. They just sit together, here you go, it's done. No, it isn't. That's not what happens.
You
That's not the real world.
don't really trust lawyers, engineers.
I don't trust anybody to do a good job if I don't look at it and say, you did a good job. That's my job here sitting on this board, is to be doing my job, is to look at everything that comes past me and say, this is okay. And I don't feel like this is okay. I feel it might be fine for what it is. I just would like to see it mesh with this, put it together, make it into one whole unit and say, okay, I understand what I'm voting on, it makes sense, it fits with what the wind law asks for, so forth and so on. Let's vote on it and do it. And, by the way, well, I won't even think about it. Never mind. That's what I think. I said my piece. I won't argue with it anymore. I'll just leave it be.
Other discussion?
The way I understand this document fitting into the whole is that we have a wind law that covers decommissioning, and part of that wind law includes language that the town can set pretty much at any time the amount for a decommissioning bond or security. And that's what this document is doing. It's setting the amount for that decommissioning bond and security and the mechanisms for doing so. And I was just rereading this, or scanning this over again. Actually, in no place on this does it actually mention Black Oak. This is disconnected from, I mean, that's your issue, this is disconnected from Black Oak. This has nothing to do with Black Oak at this point. It's just the town setting what is the amount for decommissioning under the purview of our law.
Yeah.
Is that
pretty much what we're doing,
Yeah.
from my understanding. As otherwise, our law includes numbers like 125,000 per turbine, where this one actually sets it higher.
Right.
A little bit
Right.
more.
Well, at the top where it says, obligations of developer.
But that could be any developer, it's not specific, it's just us saying, this is the amount for decommissioning the turbine. And in the whereas, well, in the be it resolved as, says, number one, the amount of $1,260,000 be hereby set approved. Number two, the amount of $100,000 be hereby set and approved. Number two, subject to, so it goes on. It's mainly, these points are just setting the amount, that's all they're doing, setting the amount and mechanism. And the mechanism for how to secure that.
Yeah, I see it as a financial instrument.
Yeah, yes and no, it's specific to our law. We have the obligation under our law to do that, and we're doing that. It is helpful for Black Oak to know what that is. So obviously it is related to that, so they know how to do that. But it's not approving a decommissioning plan, it has nothing to do.
No.
This really has nothing to do with the decommissioning plan specifically, it's just us setting the amount.
So they have
based-
financial, they know our financial expectations.
Yes, based on our obligations under the law, that we can set that amount, and we're doing that. That's my understanding of what this thing is doing.
So is that the intent of what this is?
Well, whether or not the intent, the intent is to set the number. It's not
And the
approving-
mechanism.
And the mechanism, not approving anything other than just setting the number in the mechanism.
So why should Black Oak Wind Farm be any more reassured by this than not having this, because it has nothing to do with it?
Because it says very clearly under the law, this is what the town expects. And the town, which
For a
has
wind
current-
farm project.
Right.
Right. This is what the town expects for that decommissioning, and currently the town
And
law.
when they're trying to
Yeah.
put together their financing, they know the expectations.
We could not do anything, and they could secure it at 125 per turbine, and that would be, Black Oak's obligation under the law. It's just making it clear.
So it gives them a little more assurance, and it doesn't give them a real assurance legally, but
No, we can,
it gives them a little more assurance.
we can change it any time. We can change it, the day after.
So,
Well, I'm gonna move this resolution, 2016, do you know the next resolution number?
No, Alice couldn't remember what it was off the top of her head, so she can put it in tomorrow. That's all right.
I didn't bring my July folder, so I don't.
It's 56 or 7 or something like that.
Town of Enfield resolution establishing amount and terms of decommissioning bonds and other security for future performance of decommissioning and removal obligations of developer. Whereas the town's wind law requires a decommissioning bond or equivalent security as approved by the town board to be determined in the amount for each tower in relation to each permit, but not less than $125,000 per tower as delineated in Article 1, Section 1-10 and Article 6, Section 1D through F, and whereas a permit application and review are in progress, and while no permits have issued to erect towers, it is necessary to attend to many details, including decommissioning costs and securitization of the developer's obligation to decommission and deconstruct towers and facilities upon obsolescence, loss, closure, and other like circumstances. And whereas the general form of a decommissioning bond, written as a security bond guaranteeing developer's performance, has been generally, but not specifically reviewed and approved by the town attorney pursuant to said Articles 1, Section 110, or Section 4 of Article 4, Section 1D, E, and F of the local law. And whereas engineering estimates duly reviewed by the town establish a cost per tower for decommissioning and deconstruction in such amount of $180,000 be and hereby is established as the gross initial decommissioning amount that developer shall duly guarantee or securitize in a manner as approved by the town, with such amount to be applied severally in proportional allotments to each tower, and whereas the developer has proposed a plan whereby it will, by the time turbines are commissioned, displace bonds with cash deposits and pledged accounts, and subject to approval of the same at such future time as substituted security is proposed, and the approval of the terms and the amounts thereof of the town board per Article 6, Section 1, it is agreed in principle that the developer will replace the initial bonds with cash escrow or letter of credit accounts in the amount of $1,260,000 or $180,000 per tower, whichever is greater, to securitize the decommissioning obligations of developer. And whereas the Enfield Town Board is concerned about the potential to adversely affect road conditions during the decommissioning process, and whereas upon due consideration and deliberation thereupon by the town board of the town of Enfield, be it resolved as follows. The amount of $1,260,000 be and hereby is set and approved as the gross project decommissioning cost, and an appropriate amount must be securitized by security bond for each tower permit issued. Such amount is subject to change over the life of the tower and facilities as periodic reviews of the decommissioning costs may hereafter occur under the local law. The amount of $100,000 be and hereby is set and approved as the amount which must be set as the maximum amount to be set aside for the restoration of town roads, and a proportionate amount must be securitized by security bond. Such amount is subject to change over the life of the wind farm as periodic reviews of the decommissioning costs may hereafter occur under the local law. Subject to the approval of the town board, as to the terms and amount of such escrow or other pledge, the developer will substitute cash or letters of credit no later than the commissioning of the turbine. For this purpose, the sum of $100,000 be and is hereby set aside as the initial cash or depository pledge amount to securitize the future decommissioning costs and removal obligations of the developer. Such amount is subject to change over the life of the tower and facilities as periodic reviews of the decommissioning costs may hereafter occur under the local law. Subject to the approval of the town board as to the terms and amount of such escrow and other pledge, the developer will substitute cash or cash-based accounts in lieu of and in replacement of security bonds no later than commissioning of the turbines. For this purpose, the sum of $1,260,000 or $180,000 per tower, whichever is greater, be and is hereby set as the initial cash or depository pledge amount to securitize the future decommissioning costs and removal obligations of the developer. Such amount is subject to change over the life of the tower and facilities as periodic reviews of the decommissioning costs may thereafter occur under the local law. Can I get a second?
Second.
Is there other discussion?
Are we voting on this tonight?
I believe it starred.
Without a lawyer?
It started as an action item on the agenda.
Because, people are mentioning that people haven't seen this version of it. The public hasn't seen this version of it. Or at least like other people to read it and review it as corrected.
Other people have the same concerns?
Seems like a fairly simple document.
Yeah,
Well, it seems that it's been out there for 5 months now.
and the issues we brought up at the last meeting about certain vaguenesses and so on have all been addressed, in my mind. Mays and maybes have been removed.
Yeah.
Right.
Made aware.
From May
I
to
don't
what?
think there was a maybe, but the may, well, you know, just very clear.
Well, I'm gonna call the vote.
Councilperson Bryant,
Aye.
Councilperson Carpenter,
No.
Councilperson Handstein,
Aye.
Councilperson Miles,
I,
Supervisor Ryder.
Aye. We will now move on to the main, subject matter of our meeting tonight. All of the board members have received, well, you haven't received a copy yet, but you're gonna receive a copy of the, what would you call it, the comments have been collated, by name, these are the written comments. These are the written comments, that were, received during the comment period. Do you know that precise period, Mike?
Do I know the beginning and the end of it?
Yeah, date.
I know that this written public comment was issued on May 11th, 2015.
Well, that, I believe, would be the end of the comment period. And,
Well, that was when this was issued. I don't know that that's the end of the comment period necessarily.
oh, you mean that was when that piece of paper was compiled?
That's what it says on the piece of paper. It's May 11th, 2015.
That's when it was compiled.
I'm assuming that's what.
Well, I don't, off the top of my head, recall the comment period.
Ended April 22nd.
That's when it ended, says an audience member. April 22nd, and it started,
The first comment listed is March 14th.
I'll have to insert the exact comment period that we're looking at.
Pages are all weird.
So every written comment that has been received by the town clerk has been numbered in the order in which they were dated. I don't think it was received, it was dated, wasn't it?
It was dated.
Yeah, they're all dated.
It's the date of the written comment. And the writer's name is attached.
It is.
Now, as I understand the board's wishes, they wish to take these comments and put them under the topic areas of the environmental impact statement. Do I have that correct?
You mean at the start or as everything?
As a start.
As a start? Well,
Am I correct in that?
if we look at the final environmental impact statement that was done in response to the draft environmental impact statement, you'll see that they have numbers that they're done by, and the numbers are based on the people that made the comment, and the responses are based on the numbers that go along with the comments. So we have,
Okay, let's back up. What's the date of that thing you're flipping through?
That is, November 12th, 2014.
Well, the date it was submitted was November 5th, is what it says.
November.
Okay. So I put it in, time context.
But it wasn't done by, it was done by commenter. It was separated by commentor, by the person who made the comment or the aide.
Okay, that's how that was done.
That's how
And that's how the board wants it done now?
It depends on if we're going to
I don't know what
have
happened.
Labella do it for us, how they need to format it.
Never
And we
mind.
don't know the answer to that because Labella's not here to answer questions.
This seems like, I mean, I was looking at this too, and it does seem like a reasonable format, because it goes through comment by comment, and one thing it does do is it summarizes the comments, and then responds to those comments. Where there are multiple issues within a comment, it will separate them out. Like, the first one in here is one actually from Novella Associates, and they had numerous comments within their feedback.
So that's how you wanna do it?
And so it numbered each individual concern, like 1A, 1B, 1C, and it kept on going to address all the substantive comments that were raised. Other ones, like the second one, it just summarized the concerns of the commenter, and then just two words saying, comment noted. So if there wasn't really anything to address, it would just say something like that, or at least try to address something. Maybe trying to categorize things and sort things or organize things isn't the most timely way to spending our time, but maybe going through comment by comment, summarizing that comment, what the main concern or concerns are, and responding to them.
Okay.
Just a suggestion. I don't know how others feel about that.
Not the way I would organize.
Didn't we talk about 17 or something?
I thought you'd do it by, topic in the environmental impact statement, but you can do it by individual.
So my question to start is, in the initial final environmental impact statement, there are a number of comments by Labella, and they're answered by someone. Who is it that's answering them?
No idea.
Okay, well, that's something that I think we need to know in order to do this well.
That raised questions for me. That first comment is Labella itself submitted
A question, comment,
comments,
and then someone responded to it.
and someone responded to it. Do we have comments from Labella this time?
Well, they're not on this list.
So Labella did not submit comments this time.
So why is that missing? Who answered Labella's comments in the first place? Who made Labella's comments in the first place, which was the initial one? And what are we going to do about it now? And those are all questions for
But
Labella.
no, there's nothing you're gonna do about that document now. There's nothing you're gonna do about that document.
What are we going to do about this document in relation to what happened in this document? Because this is a precedent that assumably we're using to organize what we're doing with these comments.
Oh, you
Because-
wanna use that to organize?
Well, aren't we talking about using Labella at some point in the process?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't we want to understand how Labella does things, so we know how to be in keeping with them, so we don't do things entirely different from them and make them spend a lot more money and their time doing that?
Unless they weren't efficient the first time and there's a more efficient way to do it. I'm not saying there is, but
Why wouldn't we want to ask them that and understand it?
it'd be a good question.
We'll write that question down. If you
Um,
wanna ask.
It's not going to work to write it down because that question is going to bring up more questions, just like every situation in the past. If you ask one question, they may answer that one question. but in the process of answering that one question, there's gonna be incompleteness, there's gonna be references in other areas that are gonna ask the other question. If you do it in a written format where you just go back and forth, so every board meeting, I get to ask LaBella a new question, and then every other board meeting, I get the answer to that question. We're gonna take until 2018 to get all the answers that I need from LaBella on these things. So is that really the format we wanna use to get answers from LaBella, so we know how to do
Doesn't
this?
seem like.
Doesn't seem like? I mean, what format would we wanna use then to try and have LaBella integrated into this process so we know what we're doing better? Why wouldn't we bring them into the process?
If each comment is addressed individually in the order it was submitted, there's gonna be a lot of repetition, right? Because a lot of the comments are gonna be the same.
Well, they won't be the same.
Well, they'll bring up the same issue.
They may have similar, yeah, I mean, somebody may make a comment about this and somebody else may comment about the same issue, but they may be entirely different answers to what they're asking for in relation to it,
Well, if 20 people mention the ice throw,
right?
and then each one is answered in sequence, then they're gonna be answering the same question over and over again.
There are places, in here where it's been referred back to, and it says, this comment was dealt with, comment noted, see section 3.3.2 of the DEIS, which is, there are places that reference other things, back to other places that,
I guess my question is, would it make more sense just to have some categories and address each question in a category
I think it
rather
could. What that means, what that entails is going through all these comments, picking out any number of categories in which you feel like it's, you can fit everything into, and then going to each comment and saying, okay, this comment goes in this category, and then some of the comments are gonna go in more than one category, and some of them may have, somebody says noise, pollution, 6 different things, so you're gonna have to take that comment and put it in 6 different categories to deal with in 6 different places in terms of responding to it.
But in the end, we've got maybe, I heard the number 17.
17.
I was surprised we're that many categories, maybe, but then we've got 7 categories to address instead of, however many comments there are, which is far more than 17, I think.
Well, that's categories, that doesn't mean that there are a lot of issues within those categories.
Yeah, there's 69 comments total, is what it shows on here, and that's without LaBella having
From
any
Plan 1.
comments in the process. I think we could do that. I think what we'll have to do, though, is have a secretary who's willing to write down the categories, and then we'll have to go through them one by one and say, okay, this comment fits in category 7, 9, and 13, and this comment fits in this, and then we'll have to go back and address them each one, and then somehow we'll have to put that in a format that works like this, so that we can actually then go back and respond to everybody, and then you'll have to have 3 or 4 different indexes so people can find, whose comment is where and what thing is done. I don't understand what's the best way to do it myself. I don't know what's the best way to do it, not having done it before. I can imagine, we say we're gonna rely on LaBella's expertise in this. I don't understand why we wouldn't rely on their expertise in understanding what's the best way to deal with it, so we can come to the right answers if we want to.
Unless we think we'd rather do it a different way, which we have to
Which we
decide.
could, certainly, yeah, we certainly could, and I think that's fine. We could do it, we could start doing it that way and see what comes up to it. Or, it seems to me this process today, part of what we're going to be doing is making that decision in terms of how we're going to deal with it, how we're going to go about dealing with the comments.
I mean, the people that submitted their comments, they know what their concerns are, and it'll be pretty easy for them to find their concern in 17 categories of concerns, whereas,
Well, they'll have to read, Marcus Gingrich has a dozen comments here, I'm sure that he's gonna wind up in every category through the whole thing by the time it's all done, and so Not that he will mind reading the whole thing, but he probably will have to read the whole thing in order to find the responses to all his.
Or else he'd have to read all his comments, well, I guess,
Well, he'll have to go to each category and then find where he's listed in that category and find his comment in that category and find the answer.
We have,
And it makes sense, I mean, I don't disagree.
we have to read through all of these and sort through all of them anyway. We go through them step by step and address them. In the beginning, we'll be hitting some of the issues for the first time and addressing them. Once we come across, oh, this is the same issue as in comment, 43, we could say, see comment 43 for the response to this, or 40, see response 43A.
Right.
I'm just looking for a way to get the final summary reduced, rather than have all 69 individual comments addressed, just have reduce it down to categories. But I don't know if that's the best way, it's just something that crossed my mind.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the, report that came out of the Wind Farm Advisory Committee, and looking at the table of contents, and just see if there's a way that could fit into making some of the categories.
No, these are the categories,
Okay,
sorry,
sorry,
for tonight.
okay.
I guess, I'm not sure whether you can add categories.
Where is the list of categories?
It's right up there. Where did I get them from?
No, I mean, someone to look at it.
If you wanted to look at it, that big white book, the second and third page.
So we're going by the old list of
I don't believe that, oh, yes, I assume that those are the categories that seeker set. I don't think that every new seeker, gets to set up a list of topics. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I think that the law sets the category. You
Yep.
looked into the law.
There'll be more than just those 17 categories. There'll be some other things that don't fit.
Mike, could you read, letter 2? In your,
Not page 2.
no, letter number 2 from that book you're flipping through. This book over here. You said letter number 1 was from Labella.
Right, number 2 was from Dave Box.
And who answered Dave Box?
Well, I'm assuming that Labella did this book, right? It
Yeah.
has, their name somewhere, prepared by Labella Associates. Right.
I guess it doesn't say who authored this, but it's the town's document, so
Right.
the town, is approving the comment summaries and responses.
Yes, I was trying to
We don't have
have some basis for Mike. Mike is concerned about who wrote the answer. And so my method of organization will go to letter 2 and see who answers that one.
The commenter is an investor in the wind farm and in favor of the wind farm because of concerns about energy use of the country. There are significant problems with energy, both with the supply and the amount of consumption. Conservation alone isn't enough. Problems are going to be resolved by a greater reliance on renewable sources of energy. As the harvesting, the production, and the utilization of fossil fuels, we have to find ways of doing this in a safe manner, and I believe the wind farm presents this option, and the response to A is comment noted.
And we still don't know who said
Well-
comment noted.
In the front of the book,
Except,
it says, lead agency, town board of the town of Enfield, prepared by Labella Associates, DPZ, State Street, Rochester, New York, and underneath that it says EDR Company, Montgomery Street, Syracuse, New York, then Lizelle. So, somebody in there did these answers, and who it was, I don't know. Who made the Labella comments, I don't know. Whether the Bella was just being oratorical in order that they could make their own comments and then could respond to them and bring out issues they thought were important to bring out. I don't know. I don't understand what the process is. I don't understand how they went about it. I don't understand what they were trying to do, what they were trying to accomplish in context with it. So,
Well, my understanding is the seeker process addresses issues of environmental concern. And the job of the town is to have the project mitigate to a reasonable degree environmental issues.
if you have a very broad definition of environmental, because they're talking about historical issues and,
Well, apparently, I don't think that they put those in unless the seeker law made them put them in.
right, which is, I'm saying environmental as commonly understood, environmental means things having to do with damaging the earth these days. And it goes beyond, the seeker process goes beyond things having to do with damaging the earth. It goes to the people that live nearby, it goes to visual resources, it goes to...
These 17 areas.
Right, it goes to a number of areas.
Now, what's your understanding of the seeker process?
What's my understanding of it?
Yeah.
It's to make sure people don't do stupid things.
Oh.
Got a better definition? I'm happy with it.
I just said my understanding.
Right.
To have the project sponsors mitigate to a reasonable degree environmental concerns.
Well, and what's your definition of environmental?
I would take the 17 topics that seekers
So all those
looked
areas
at
fit into environmental.
for the purposes of seekers,
Well,
I believe.
that's basically the part of the seeker that they're talking about. So, but at the same time, there are things beyond the seeker process that it also asks for, as well as those 17 environmental things.
Like what?
I'd have to go into it and tell you about it, but I couldn't tell you what this
I
means.
can't tell you.
Well, let's say then it's the implications of those 17 things. So it's not necessarily the direct understanding of the 17 things, it's the implication of how the town is going to deal with the implications of those 17 things. So it goes beyond talking about what the issues are to the point of saying, these are the issues and these are the ways that we have to deal with these issues, and these are long-term effects of these issues, and these are things that you have to take into account when you're dealing with all these issues. And I think there are areas that if you say, well, can we fit it into these 17 topic areas? I guess you could shove it into different topic areas and say it belongs here and belongs here and belongs here. But to me, there's overall things that really don't have a topic area that they fit in. And you can say, well, this issue, which is an important issue, doesn't really go into this topic area other than that it relates to all these topic areas. So this is an issue we need to think about in a larger scope, in a larger context. For instance, community, whatever you call it, how we deal with issues, community dispute resolution plan that we ask for in the law and that Black Oak.
It's
Black Oak
stated
put-
in the law.
It's stated in law, and Black Oak put it in the appendix. They didn't put it in the context of any of these categories. They put it outside the context of the 17 categories and said, actually, now this is a different thing we want to talk about. Well, it relates back to those 17 categories, but it actually goes beyond those 17 categories in that it says, well, now that we've talked about the 17 categories, here's an issue that we have to figure out how to deal with in relation to what will we do if there's problems in any category that we have to deal with in the future, how are we going to deal with it? So, it's just saying that everything you talk about won't fit into a category and say this belongs here, that belongs here. There's some things that go beyond that in terms of their scope.
So you said they put it in the appendix. Do you feel that that's incorrect?
It could be anywhere that they put it. I don't care where they put it. But it's an issue because it's asked for in our town law. So they have to put it somewhere. It doesn't go necessarily into every different area, although they could go into each area and each 17 areas and say, okay, we have a different way of dealing with dispute resolution depending on which of these 17 areas that you want to deal with. And you'd have 17 different dispute resolution conflict plans in terms of how to deal with it, and you have to look at which area it's in and how you do the dispute resolution for that one, how you do that
How
one.
would you keep that under
That-
the umbrella?
How would you keep it under the umbrella? I don't understand what you mean.
Well, previously you were worried about, breaking things up, and so you would never know where.
I didn't want to. You're saying, could we do that? I wouldn't want to do that. I would want to have one thing that says exactly how we're going to deal with dispute resolution. Because that gives you a sense of how to deal with it no matter what. Because any of these 17 areas, you're not going to be able to come up with all of the particulars of what might go wrong or what may be a problem in each of these areas and say, okay, we have to think of all the things. What you need is one overall process that's flexible enough and clear enough and well stated enough and detailed enough that lets you deal with any situation that comes up and gives you the tools to deal with those situations as they come up.
So in plan number 1, they put an appendix with a dispute resolution process.
Plan number 1? In the...
That was dated 2014.
In the initial draft environmental impact statement, the initial one, that was back a ways.
I thought it was 2014 you read.
Which one are we talking about? This
I
one?
think that one you were
This is the final environmental impact statement. Their dispute resolution methodology was in the draft, which came before the final because the final was...
And they don't repeat it in the final?
I think it's referenced. I don't, there is no index in here, there's no appendix in this one that shows that. But as we talked about before, things that are in the draft environmental impact statement that are not included in the final environmental impact statement, unless they are denied or changed in the final environmental impact statement, then the draft one takes precedence. The draft one is a body of information that stays in place no matter what happens. It still stays in place. It just may be adjusted or adapted by the final one or by the finding statement or whatever happens. But that information from the draft never goes away. That's assumed to be part of the information process.
And so the appendix A that you're referring to is in a different...
It's actually appendix U, and it's in the draft environmental impact statement, which was issued, not the draft supplemental, but the draft original, which was back in...
Oh, the draft original.
Yeah, which was done back in 2012, 2013,
Well, about that.
somewhere in there. Yeah,
In the draft original.
the draft original, right? Yeah.
The final, environmental impact statement, it says, it goes through for each comment, it summarizes the comment, and sometimes separates individual comments, if there's more than one issue, and responds to each of those things for each comment. We could still do the same, and at the same time, categorize, this comment is relating to this category. So we can go through and summarize, respond, and categorize it comment by comment. In the end, we have a summarization and a response, as well as categories for each response, for each comment. kind of gives the best of both worlds, rather than taking all the comments and trying to, narrow them down to specific categories of issues. Just feeling that since we have to go through them comment by comment anyway, do the same thing.
So is that an agreeable way to proceed?
Well, describe exactly how you want to proceed, Michael, so I'm really...
I would just take it comment by comment. Take the first comment,
Start with page one.
start with page one,
Okay.
summarize summarize the issues that the commenter was bringing up. It doesn't have to copy the comment. In fact, the final impact thing would just summarize what the commenter was saying.
Mhm.
So summarize the comment and respond to it. At the same time we're summarizing, we can categorize. Well,
Among
this fits into,
17.
one of the 17 categories. If there's more categories that become apparent, we can add categories, I suppose, like the fee resolution.
And then if we get a comment that, a later comment that brings up a almost identical issue, we could refer back to, the first page.
Yep, Steve responds 43A. I mean, if we already responded to it, don't do it again.
I gave that.
Just say,
I gave
Steve
her.
responds, and that way each comment has a response to it. And so if I had comment 43, and I don't know what comment mine is, but, and it was already responded to, I could just say, oh, they addressed this in this comment, in this previous comment. So you wouldn't repeat everything, you just say, see, this comment was already addressed.
I think conceptually that's good. I don't know that when we're doing this number 1 page here, or let's say number 2 page from B.B. Tavares, which says basically build the wind farm now, quit waiting. If we get on to, page 426, and by that time we're going to say, oh, that's just like B.B.'s comment from page 2. Let's say refer back to B.B.'s comment in page 2. I think it'll be a little problematic for us to remember that. I guess one thing I would like to say, though, is I think we should try and decide ahead of time whether we are preparing something for Labella to finalize, whether preparing an outline for Labella to work under, whether we're preparing a final statement for Labella to just go over and approve. I think having that understanding ahead of time before we start this process will be really beneficial in terms of how we proceed in the process itself.
Well, I feel uncomfortable commenting on these 17 areas. I am not an environmental engineer and think that if we do not have Labella go over these set topic areas that seeker seeks out, that we put ourselves at grave risk.
So, let me understand, you feel uncomfortable making any comment in relation to them and handing them on to Labella? Or you feel uncomfortable
No, it would be
being the final say in...
final say,
Gotcha, okay.
final say.
Reasonable, and we're not experts in some of these topics
Yeah.
that are brought up.
Well, I'm not.
That's why we have Labella. Depending, ultimately it's our document that we have to create, so we're in charge. We can use or not use Labella as much as we want, I suppose, depending on financial situations. There's a lot of work going through all 463 pages and summarizing what each of these comments, and sometimes if you have a comment that was submitted, it's actually really, 13 comments that each have to be addressed.
Right. Right.
So it would be useful if we had somebody like Labella to summarize the comments into the issues. But we had decided to go ahead and just start to work ourselves. That's what it sounded like.
Well,
That's my
I don't know that
understanding.
Labella ever put them into issues in the past,
Well, someone summarized them. We don't know. if
but
they
not
did.
in terms of issues.
Well, they summarized the comments.
There were hardly any comments.
They summarize each comment, like comment 2A. The commenter is, an investor in the wind farm and in favor of the wind farm because And so to summarize what that commenter was saying, and
No, I
and
don't-
in response to the whole, to that was comment noted. It didn't really require any further,
Any mitigation?
any mitigation.
Right, and they summarized the comment, but I don't think they categorized it.
No, they didn't categorize.
Right.
We could follow this mechanism and just don't categorize things unless we feel we need to.
Well, that's what I'm asking now, because...
Well, you can, add a list 4, add a list again. If that's, comment number 2, I would say, if you want to put it in a category, it's in favor of the wind farm. And that's the gist.
What would be the benefit of that, though,
You would categorize every comment.
in terms of in favor or against?
That would be,
I don't think that, I think it's an oversimplification. It's not just the for.
Well, why would we do that? I don't understand why we do that. What would be the benefit of doing that?
you would categorize every comment. You're concerned about categorizing every comment.
No, I'm not.
Oh,
I'm not.
oh.
No, it was
Oh.
something that Henry brought up as being a way to
Oh.
deal with it. I think there's lots of
Oh.
different ways to deal with it. That's why I think we need to talk about how
No,
we're going
what's
to
another way? No comment.
Just
Comment noted.
Just the way that
Comment
Michael
noted.
just said now is another way. of doing it.
Comment noted.
And it's to say that's the same way that Labella did it, or whoever did this paper, which we don't know.
Is that what you said? Comment noted?
Yeah, that's, I'm
Well-
saying, some actually require, and most of them do actually have, actual responses to the comments.
The comment
so-
noted is something you can do that's for a person who's not making a substantive point or asking a question. If they're making a point that they want spoken to, then you have to respond to that comment.
Like comment 1 is, in favor, and they comment noted. It's not a lot of substantive issues that came up in that. You could, summarize it saying why they're in favor, but you just have to
Oh,
say-
you mean of the current comment?
Yeah, the current comment, that's one way of doing that. The last one didn't categorize it, and I don't know if we need to or are obligated to do that.
Well, Henry, what do you think in relation to the idea of how we're going to relate this to Labella in the end? How we're going to connect this to them so they can do what they do, and what should they be doing?
Well, I guess we should probably ask them.
Well, that's what I thought too.
Yeah. Now, Marguerite said that since we passed this resolution, she could move forward on, getting some funds and pay her legal bills, and then we can consult with Bella, and then when she gets the legal bills paid, and gets the, surplus back in the account. But, do you want to have every comment individualized in the, final statement, the way it was done the first time, or?
Well, I think the seeker is asking us to respond to the comments that people make. So in one way or another, I think it's calling for a response by us. I think the question really is just how we want to format those responses, what kind of organizational structure we want to put them in. And we want them to be in one, obviously, that will be helpful to us, that will be helpful to the people that are reading them, but also if we want Labella to be the final agency that's going to write this up for us, then we want to do our job in such a way that it's also helping them in the things that they need to do. And it seems to me what Michael is saying to start with, before we know any more from Labella, would be that we could start by doing it the way that they did it, which is to respond to each one as it goes along. We have person number 1, person number 2, person number 3, so forth and so on, and that's kind of where we're going. When I look at the dates on here, I have a March 14th as the first date here, then I have a March 20th, then I have a March 28th, and some of them don't have dates on them, but it looks like they're in date order, chronological order in terms of how they've been given to us as a package. So they're the same format that we have here from Labella, and they're in chronological order and going through them.
if we feel that, then we could just summarize the comments, and if we feel that we can't answer them, or like some of them are just in favor, we just
Yeah, I
say,
mean, why can't
comment noted.
we group the ones that are in favor, unless there's some question, and then start breaking it down into
Well, it will take a
concerns.
long time to read through them all and then group them all. We'd have to either pull out the comments from this thing and put this over here, that over there, and then we'd have to look at ones like Nancy Spiro's, which say, I really want the wind farm to happen, but I have some reservations, here's what they are. Is that a for or against?
You know, but then you have a pile of, or you have a
In
group of
between.
ones which you've got to
Yeah.
address
I'm
something.
just not sure what the benefit would be in doing that, is all spending the time on that. And I'm not sure that it would be any benefit to Labella in terms of how they want to organize the final comment. I mean, we could do that, and then we would know that we have 34 or 30 against, or whatever it might be, but I don't know that, I don't think it's a popularity contest so much as the job that we're supposed to do is to be circumspect about the environmental, as Ann stated, needs of the situation.
I wonder if we should ask Labella if they want to proceed with, just a list of concerns and address each one of them based on the comments.
How does the board's concerns?
The commenters' concerns.
How do you do
Well,
that?
I think it's safe to say that that's how they're gonna do it. They're not gonna reinvent the wheel, come on. They're gonna do it the same way they did the last time.
They'll do the same way they did last time. Yeah.
I mean,
Well, they listed every comment in the last time, right?
They listed every person who made a comment, and then they went ahead, proceeded by person by person by person, said what the comment said, and then noted their response to it, yeah.
Well, I guess I'd like to ask them if they want to do it the same way, since there's so many more comments this time, or if they'd rather do it in
a different way,
terms of the
because
category.
there's more comments.
I guess that brings up, how are we using Labella? Are we,
Right.
I mean, ultimately, this is, as the lead agency, this is our document that we have to create, this is our
Right.
document. Labella's,
We,
Yeah.
we passed the final document.
Labella is playing a supportive role, it's not it's not necessarily their job unless we tell them, do this work for us, to do this. It's our document that we can create.
Well, let me ask a
And
question.
so I think we can make that decision. It seems reasonable to go through that, but, if they have some other way that they do it now.
What's the difference between Labella's response to a comment and our response to a comment? What are the possible differences there?
Whoever responds to that comment, it's ultimately the town has to, and the board has to read through those responses and agree with those responses
Right.
as we're approving that final EIS.
Right.
If the fellow comes up with a comment, maybe we don't like a particular response, we don't have to go with what they said, we can substitute our own response, it's our document.
So with that in mind, it would make sense to me that we would give Labella some direction from the board in terms of how we, as a board, would like to respond to this comment. And that's exactly what Frank Pavia was telling us in the meeting that we had with him and with Guy Crow the other day, is that the typical way of doing this is for the town board to go through the comments and to decide in the board itself how they would like to respond to the comments. And then that can be summarized and codified and written up fancy and whatever by your lead agent, the person that the lead agency has hired to do that part of it. But basically then it's done in keeping with how the board has decided they would want to do that. If we have areas that we don't have an opinion on, or that we don't have enough information on, or that we don't have the expertise on, we certainly can just respond to that particular note or that particular comment and say, this is something we'd like some information from Labella, we'd like to go ahead and find an answer to this, so we can go ahead and look at it later and decide if it's complete and substantial for us.
Did the previous town board organize and respond to all these comments, I wonder, or did,
I would say no, it was never done in any meeting that I was at, and I was at the meeting that approved this. So, Ann might have a
Yeah.
different answer, but,
We authorized them to prepare this document, and it was presented to the board 2 or 3 weeks before it was voted on. And there was not substantial,
I don't think we told Labella to change anything,
no.
that I remember.
No.
We could do the same thing, assuming proper funds to go
Yeah.
ahead and
That's the way to do it.
summarize.
It was not an odd way to do it.
Yeah.
In their mind, it wasn't odd.
Say, we
It's the way they do it.
We were talking about this at the last meeting, about us just starting the process regardless, and not waiting.
That was what I heard,
And not
a
waiting
wish.
for Labella.
Yes, that was what I
The
heard as a
alternate-
wish.
The alternate is to wait for those funds to be replenished, and instruct Labella to do it, unless we feel we want to go ahead and do it ourselves. Has the, how is the fund status? Has the letter gone out to replenish?
Yes.
Do we know a time frame when they'll pay that?
No. I can check tomorrow.
When I look back on the responses from Labella to the initial environmental impact statement, I definitely feel like there's things missing in there that I would want to have in there. So for me, I think it's important for the board to have some input into what happens there. And it makes sense to me that we would give them the input before they spend all the time answering everything and then send it back to us and then tell them, well, wait, you gotta change that.
Well,
That makes sense to me.
we could tell Labella to do the same thing they did the last time, but, we'll definitely have more eyes on the responses this time. That's certainly true.
It's true, it will take longer and it will cost more money to do it that way, I think.
It doesn't mean that if we have Labella go ahead and do that we automatically have to accept everything
No.
that they say. It's our document, like I say, it's our document. We say, well, we don't really think that is addressing the key concerns of a particular comment, and we may revise that response,
But I would agree with Mike, if this board wants more input, I think we ought to do it up front and, at least do a sample and, see which ones we're going to take umbrage with.
And we could do it all together at a meeting. We could each take our own individual copies and bring them back to the next meeting and then talk over our different responses. We could elect me to do the whole thing myself, and I'll write answers to everything and bring it back and then give it to you guys to read and talk about. There's lots of different ways to do it. I'm happy with any of them.
One thing with Labella doing it is it puts it in the hands of ideally a firm that doesn't have an opinion either way on the project. Their job is to respond technically and respond
Technically, yeah.
technically to the comments. They do the work that we ask them to do.
Yeah.
They also don't have, let's say, a dog in the fight. Just use it, not a very good thing.
Right.
They don't sit in this meeting with these people here that are saying, what are you gonna do to us? And I think to just leave it in Labella's hand is definitely a dereliction of my duty in this job.
I
I
think
didn't hear that that's what he said.
I don't think it'd be a dereliction necessarily. I think we would ultimately review all the responses and make sure that we feel comfortable with them.
We could, yeah, and if it would spend more money and it would take more time. I think that's true. So, and if I was Labella and I was being asked to do this and being told that you're gonna do the whole thing and then we're gonna come back and tell you what we like and what we don't like, I would have some questions about that. I would think, why don't you look at them ahead of time? But, that's just,
I'm not sure how much more time it would take. I think it would take more time for the board itself to go through all these comments and respond to them substantively.
But are we gonna do that when it happens anyway?
Well, we're gonna review them. We may not adjust every comment, but we can instruct them to do a lot of the grunt work in terms of summarizing those comments. We have a responsibility to make sure that what Labella is doing and saying is that we feel comfortable with. We're not derelicting a duty, we're just making sure we're gonna spend more time, making sure that the summarizations and the responses match what our, match something that we want.
I understand what you're saying. I don't think it actually will work out that way. I think we will do a shoddy job on it that way, but I understand that we could do a good job that way. I don't think we will. I think as a board, we've been really unprofessional so far, and at some point, we gotta step up and take responsibility for this job, and if we don't do it, we don't do it. We'll just leave it to other people. But that's what I feel.
So you wanna submit the comments to Labella with a lot of initial feedback?
I want to talk about this among the board, because I want to talk about these issues with the people that are responsible for taking care of and seeing to that this acres gets done right. I want to talk about this with people. I don't know that it's not going to just happen that we're going to get something back from Labella, and everybody's going to kind of look at it and say, well, that sounds like a good answer, yeah, that's fine. And I'm going to sit here saying, that's not enough, that's not enough, that's not enough, and everybody's going to say, shut up and go back to your hole somewhere. That's what I'm feeling like is going to happen, and I'm concerned about that. I feel like these people deserve more than just this board saying, well, just let this somebody else do it. I think they deserve more than that. And I think that's what's going to happen. I know that's not what you're saying is going to happen.
I don't want that to happen.
I think that's what's likely to happen in this situation.
I think there's a lot of upfront and grunt work in terms of summarizing the comments.
Right. There is, yeah.
And that's just gonna take a lot of work and a lot of time to go through.
Right.
And that's something that we can.
Well, how about if I do it? How about if you just let me do this, then, and I'll bring it back to the meeting, and you can look over, or I'll read you my comments, and then you can decide whether you want to give them to Labella or not.
You must have a lot of free time.
No, I care about this. I don't have any free time, but I really care about this. I think we're acting like jerk. I think I'm acting like a jerk in this whole thing, and I think I have for 3 years, as long as I've been on this board, because I wasn't paying attention. And I didn't do my job, and I'm not gonna blame it on you guys weren't even here. But I feel like a jerk for doing my job really poorly, and I feel responsible to do this one right, if I can, if at all possible.
So, to take one specific, Jude was concerned about the turbines being close to her property line, where she's essentially granting safety right away without compensation.
And it's in here, right?
Yeah. So, do you have a proposal how to deal with that?
Do I have a proposal how to deal with that? I could give you 6, 7, a dozen different proposals of potential ways to deal with it. It means looking at what Jude's needs are. It means understanding what the implications of any policy that relates to her property are for everybody else's property. It has implications in terms of what Black Oak is willing or able to do in relation to what their process is.
Well, that's what
There
the
is
comments
nothing
we're gonna
here
have to
that's
address,
simple.
right? So,
Right.
what?
This is not simple stuff, yeah.
No, I'm just wondering
Yeah.
what we do with that.
We talk about it. And we can talk about it at the
When do
point
we
of...
do that?
We do it in meetings. Here we are today. We go page by page and do it one by one. Or we have another meeting next week on Tuesday, and another meeting the Tuesday after that, and another meeting Tuesday after that. Or we do it at home as homework. And we bring in our whole filled out set of papers and say, okay, I've got all my answers down for all the things. Let's look at them and talk about them and vote on them, or let's decide what we're going to send off to Labella and what we're going to keep here.
Well, what are our options? Apparently, you read a clause in the wind law where Guy Crow said we have the ability to change it retroactively. That there was a loophole in there. Where we
That
could
was
change
what
it.
he told me.
Yeah, so, are
Say
you
that again?
Guy Crow said there was a clause in the wind law that says if we had compelling reasons, health, safety, I think, we could make changes to the wind law retroactively. We had to be careful, I think, is my understanding. So I'm just wondering if, is that something you're considering, like trying to increase the setback so that issue would windows being close to non-participating property owners is addressed? Or
I would consider anything that would resolve this issue between Black Oak Wind Farm and the homeowners who live nearby. Anything that we can do that would help to make this possible, to help to make it possible for the wind farms to build their wind farm in some manner of speaking, and have the homeowners be protected in the same manner of speaking, so that it's doable. I don't know
Well,
this-
it's possible to build them and stay as far from property lines as people want them.
I don't know what's possible right now. All the way along, what my concern has been, how are we gonna figure out how to make this happen?
I think,
But you must know about setbacks, you must have some sense of setbacks.
I have a sense that the setbacks are too small, yes. We were told by the Tompkins County Planning Department back in, when was this, 2008, 2007, that the setbacks were too small. The town board was told very specifically
And
that
the
the setbacks are
town
too small.
board, in the acceptance resolution, answered that.
They did, and here's what they said. Let me go back to the start of the second. Well, the NYSERDA data cited by the Tompkins County Department of Planning in support of greater setbacks is at best equivocal. The Tompkins County Department of Planning failed to explain its rationale for suggesting a different setback, other than general supposition about needs for greater community support. Further, the setbacks set forth in the proposed local law are within the range suggested by NYSERDA, and the Tompkins County Planning Department seems to have ignored those portions and provisions of the proposed local law. Well, that may or may not be true. I wasn't privy to that conversation in any way, and I don't know what the NYSERDA regulations were back at that point. But then it goes on to say, seems to have ignored those portions and provisions of the proposed local law to signify that the requirements of such local law are minimum requirements, such that the setback, among other requirements, may be increased to mitigate potential adverse impacts during the application, permitting, and future seeker review processes. So this resolution that passed the town wind law said very clearly that we think that somewhere in the future, whenever this process actually happens, we can deal with the setback issues as a separate thing and change them as needed. That's what they said when they made this law. If you go to the law itself, there is a place in it that says the town has the right to decide in the future that the setbacks of the law are not going to be sufficient enough to do what they're needed, and we can change them as needed during the secret process. That's in the local law, and that's what Guy Crow said very clearly, gives us the right to do that if we want to during this process, during the secret approval process.
but getting back to like Henry's comment, say a comment brought up that, the safety zone issue. In response to that, we could note that, according to GE, it says it's in the safety zone, and that will cross over non-participating funds. We don't have to give an opinion, we just have to give factual information. That's in our final impact statement. A separate document can refer back to the final impact statement. This is the findings document, which will come later, that says, well, according to the final EIS that the board passed, this is an issue, and could put in the teeth saying this has to be resolved for this project to go forward, for us to move forward with it. So it's the finding statement that is the teeth in all this, and where the board can say, this is an issue that came up during the comment and the final EIS, and we want this addressed.
And wouldn't you want your finding statement to be consistent with how you responded to the comment in the supplemental draft environmental impact statement? Wouldn't you want those two to be consistent with each other?
What two am I being?
The finding, you're saying we can put things in the finding statement?
Correct.
Okay. Wouldn't you want the things that you wrote in terms of what you're asking Black Oak to do in that finding statement?
Yep.
Wouldn't you want that information to be consistent with the way you responded to the comment?
It should be.
Right.
It should be.
Which is
And
why
that's what you're using to support that finding statement.
Right, which is why I think we need to have a part in the process of how the comments get responded to.
But the final impact statement is not our resolution of it. It's just
Not a
our
resolution.
responding to that comment in as much of a factual way as possible.
And the issue for me is that things have changed in the world in the last 10 years, significantly. They certainly have changed in terms of our understanding of how people are affected by things like wind towers and living close to wind towers. And there is room in the secret process for a newer understanding of how things affect people to be included in that, so that you can change. You don't have to change 180 degrees, but you might change 30 degrees in terms of how you deal with this subject. And whether or not there's a resolution to this distance away from the towers, I don't know. I know that in talking with Marguerite, conversations I've had with her, I think she understands that it's an issue. I think she understands that there's a possibility that there might be difficulties for people that live close to towers, and I think she would like to find a solution to that issue. But she doesn't know really clearly what it is either, just like the rest of us don't really know what it is really clearly. So,
Well, the final could reference, expertise or knowledge that
we get how many days between when the final supplemental environmental impact statement is done and the finding statement is written? How many days do you get? I think it's in here. I think you get 10 days or 20 days or something like that.
Oh.
You're supposed to have completed it. Right now, we're dealing with masses of information and thoughts and comments and things. It seems to me this is the time to deal with this stuff and to try and understand, at least as a board, how we want to deal with it. I mean, maybe we're all on the same page. Maybe we all think that the setbacks are too short and that nothing should happen, that no wind farm should ever happen. Maybe we're the opposite. Maybe we all think the wind farm should happen and too bad about the setbacks. I don't know. But this is what Frank Pavia was saying, is that there's a process whereby a board will sit down and talk about these kind of things, and the things are in the comments. They're very clearly elucidated in the comments, and, would decide on that. And like I said, I understand you're saying, well, let Labella do it, and we'll come back and deal with it then. I'm really concerned that we're just going to blow it off again, and that's my own. It might be paranoia. It might just be my own guilt in myself for doing a poor job the first time.
If we want to do it, then we just have to dig in and do it. Go through each comment and summarize it and respond to it. But if there's a technical response, maybe there's talking about infrasound and sound, and we don't have the experience, we should say, well, this is something that Labella should weigh in on in terms of their expertise. That's what it could be.
The biggest issue that I found, and we've been back and forth with it so much in the advisory committee meetings, and when I look online, and when I talk to the people that come to these public hearings, you got the guy over here that says, sound is not an issue. Don't worry about it. It's not going to be a problem. And the other people over here said, I had to leave my house and I can't sell it. Where is the middle ground? There's got to be some middle ground there, right? I mean, it can't be either one or the other completely. It can't be that sound has no issue, and it can't be that everybody that lives within 1,000 feet of the wind farm has to move out and go away, because some people do live within 1,000 feet and don't go away. It's not a scientific issue. It hasn't been dealt with. It's a people issue, and these are the people that we're talking about. And it's like, there may be some people that live 1,000 feet away from these things. Have you been downtown lately, over by Hancock Street, where they're building the INHS multi-story housing project?
Oh, no, I haven't been down to that.
They put in an application and with the city argued about this stuff, so forth and so on, and said, well, we'll only have 6 weeks and there'll be some pounding in the ground, and, it's not going to be a big deal. So my son lives 2 houses from this place. I was there talking today. We're sitting and talking together. Boom! Boom! There's like 70 decibel loud sounds every 2 seconds all day long.
Well, I work
by his house.
I work in a building where they're putting in the new Thompson Trust building, and there's pilings going on, the same thing.
And some parts of his house shake.
Fortunately, I'm on the other side of the building.
Some don't shake, right. So,
but
there are some people that live downtown that, say, yeah, they're booming, they're banging, they'll be done in 6 weeks.
I don't think it's, when we're going through this, that you're gonna find a scientific answer. We're not gonna say
but you can note saying,
rather than saying this is not an issue, you can say some people have experienced, issues with this, and some people,
But how
have
can we
not.
give that decision to Labella? How can we ask them to make a decision there?
I
They
think-
don't have a criteria to make it on.
I think you can, I think it's fair to say that some people have had, negative experiences living next to turbines with sound, and some people haven't.
Right.
I mean, and that's both factual.
Okay, so if that's the
We're
fact,
not saying that person who said they did really didn't, and they're just saying that, we don't know. They're just saying that they
we're
said that
saying
they
some
had
people,
experience.
some people probably do and some people don't. So
Yeah.
what's the next step after that? Is it the town's job to think about the mitigation process for the people who do it?
But,
I thought that was the purpose of this process.
Okay,
And-
so
and-
that means that yes, it is the town's job.
And so you say, well, some people haven't, then this could potentially be an issue, because you can't say that there isn't a potential issue, because some people have said they've experienced the issue, and it's not just one person, but you could say, well, the board is concerned about this.
Right.
So what's the mitigation?
Well, that's the next step. If we say it's an issue, and if we say it's the town's job to do it, then it's the board's job to say, okay, we have to find a mitigation thing. And we can come up with lots of different possibilities, and we can present them to Black Oak. I mean, in the end, it's Black Oak's choice to do what they want to do. We've talked to them a number of times in the wind advisory meetings and said, well, there's an issue here. Can you think about this, or can you think about that? And the answer was, we're a corporation, we don't do that. We don't change our things because of you and your needs. We're a corporation, we only do things that the corporation says it's gonna do. And those are only things that are the most profitable for the corporation. That was their answer to that.
But that's the developer saying it at a time, but if we have.
But I thought we were talking about the board.
We are talking about the board.
But-
That's you, that's you, that's you, that's you,
Right.
that's me.
But the board is the one that gives answers and gives approvals to Black Oak Wind Farm. So we're the ones that have to say yes or no, right?
I believe it's our job to offer mitigation, suggestions for mitigation.
And it's their job to say what they'll do. And then it's our job to say that's okay or it's not okay, right?
I mean, I'm looking at a comment right now where somebody is stating that they'll be 0.47 miles away from a turbine. And the safe distance is 1.24. What?
That's over 2,000 feet.
So,
And what?
this comment states, it says, health experts say the safe distance to windmill from a dwelling is 1.24 miles. We will only be 0.47 miles away.
Right. And
So,
in countries like Denmark and other countries in Europe, they're saying you have to be 2 kilometers away. The new rules say 2 kilometers, or even some of the places are 5 kilometers away in Germany. So, what's safe, what's okay? This is a situation that doesn't have any easy answers, and it's going to be complicated. And I think all of us would like to see it happen, but I think all of us would like to figure out how we can protect the people that live close by. And is it possible? I don't know, but we're not going to get there
You
without
don't
talking
know.
about it. I don't know if it's possible, no. I don't know if it's possible to approve the wind farm as shown, as drawn, basically, in exactly that it is right now with the setbacks, and still have the people that live close by say, no big deal, it doesn't bother me any. I don't know that that's
I'm pretty sure
possible.
that's not possible.
Yeah.
I realize some of these issues are gonna be hard to solve, and we're not all gonna be in agreement with them, but the process is, going through the secret process is, we're at a stage now where people have raised their concerns. We need to review and comment on those concerns, and then the next step is what do we want to do as a board to mitigate some of those concerns that were raised?
Now, I made the suggestion that anyone who feels they can't live in their home, once the turbine's up, that they put it up for sale, and Black Oak pays any difference between the appraised value and the sale price, but that's still a heavy burden on the homeowner, because they have to give up their home and find a new one. but at least they're not stuck somewhere and they're not able to sell it and they can't stay there either.
But the homeowner's not obligated to sell, and they may not want to sell. We have a
Exactly.
lot of people that have been here, you know, for decades, for life, and if they don't wanna move.
No.
So
But
so to you, that's not an appropriate mitigation.
Well,
Demand.
it's a tool that that can be used as a suggestion, saying if they offer that, and if the homeowner agrees to that, then that's fine. It's not us to say you have to do that. It's us to, you know, we can say that as a potential mitigation, or
Say that again?
it's not our job to say you have to take the buyout. We can offer that as a suggestion, but ultimately, it's the homeowner that should be deciding whether to sign a contract, take a buyout, or whatever the mitigation is.
It would be our job to tell the wind farm that they have to find a procedure whereby the buyout is available.
Yeah.
That would be our job.
Yeah, buyout is available, or sign a contract, but people shouldn't be obligated to do either or,
Right.
either one of those.
They should.
Well, if a turbine goes up near their home, then and it bothers them, those are their choices, either live with it and suffer or move.
Or maybe there's some other choices. They might,
Well,
There's
you know,
come on.
everybody choices.
let's get them out. I mean,
you
I
could,
mean, 6 weeks into this process, you're suddenly gonna have an idea?
I have lots of ideas.
Well, let's get them out. I thought that was the purpose.
Of,
This meeting, these meetings.
I thought the purpose was to go over these comments. You wanna know what some other ideas are that we could deal with?
Yeah,
How to address some of the issues. in the
because
comments,
it's too
that's
late
what I
to
would
start on the, because we're about at,
Or about that.
pumpkin time. So the
What are
purpose
some
of
other
the
ideas?
meeting, of
You
going
could-
through the
You
comments.
could build walls.
is what?
You could build walls in people's backyards that would be sound mitigation walls.
Oh, well.
You could help people with renting their houses so that they got a good amount of money from rental, that they could go live somewhere else until the turbines were gone someday far in the future. Then they can have their home back. And, if you really thought about it, you could find all sorts of ideas. They're not going to be, most of them, as practical as Henry's, because basically it's kind of an either-or thing at this point, either not or there. Maybe there's some other turbines that are available, like the lady said at our last meeting, said, well, maybe you could look into some alternate turbine technology. Well, Marguerite said those turbines aren't available yet. Well, maybe they aren't yet, but maybe, just maybe, when they finally get approval on this thing, in 5
will
years
be.
from now, or whenever it might be, those turbines will be available. So maybe we could say, well, gee, they're cheaper, why don't you just do those turbines instead, and we'll help you out here, and the people will come out that live nearby, and they'll help you put the turbines up if you want, because they'd like to have a change of turbines. The world is full of possibilities, and
Okay.
some of them are practical, some of them are not very practical, but what I find is when you put a lot of people together with a lot of different thoughts and ideas in a room, you actually find that there's a lot more possible ways of doing things than you thought there were in the first place, and
Yes, that's
sometimes there
very
might be an
true.
answer. This paper right here,
That's very true.
that I read, that was in our packet at the last meeting from the Black Oak Wind Farm, that says Town of Enfield Community Relations and Complaint Resolution Procedure, is very different from the one that came with us to, from the Appendix U in the first environmental impact statement.
And where
And
did
it-
you get that? I don't-
This was in our
Yeah.
packet last time,
Last meeting?
last meeting, I had it in my packet last meeting, that's where I
don't
saw
think
it.
I had it. No.
Yeah. Well, it actually approaches the idea of buyouts, which
Oh, yeah.
Black Oak said
Yeah.
they wouldn't ever consider
That.
left, right, or center, that buyouts are not something that they can do, and now here they're talking about buyouts and the possibility of doing it.
You need to be a little bit corrected.
Good.
This is a document that I asked to be produced.
Okay, let me tell you, this is a document that came with no indication of who did it,
That's
no
true.
date on it,
That's true.
no relevance to what's going on. It just sat there and it said, well, that's interesting. I wonder who wrote this, and I wonder when they wrote it.
Well,
and
do
I
you want
wonder-
to hear the answer?
I would love to hear the answer, yes.
Frank Pavia wrote it, Pavia.
Right.
Frank Pavia wrote it. And,
I've seen that, right?
about June 8th, 2016.
Well, now I don't feel so happy about it, because I really thought that Black Oak might have had something to do with it, but I guess they didn't, which is too bad. But,
Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear you say that.
well, it says Black Oak Wind Farm on the front, and on the very back, it says Black Oak Wind Farm LLC.
You know,
Marjorie
if
Wells.
I could
So-
figure out how to put drafts in the background of the document.
Well, even just sign it and put a date on it, you know, to know who made the thing. I don't even know if it's a draft. I just need to know who wrote it and who, and when it was written.
Okay, Frank Pavia,
I will
about
write that
June
down.
8th,
Thanks, Bobby, it's
2016.
June 8th. So I will make no assumptions that Black Oak is changing their mind. Or has
Well,
any willingness
I
to
guess
change
I
their mind.
didn't understand that that was the board's job to change their mind,
Change whose mind?
Black Oak's mind.
It's not our job to change their mind, it's our job to say yes or no, and right now, I'm a definite no. I'm just like, no.
Well,
You haven't proven that you're gonna be at all careful with these people that live near to you. You haven't even said you'll be careful, you just say, we'll listen to them, and that's all you're gonna do is listen.
Did Frank talk to Black Oak before he do that?
So,
This is a boilerplate, community.
and it has problems, it's very vague, and it's really insubstantial.
It's been
but
used in other towns.
not very well then, because it's really poorly done, so.
I'll pass on Frank's
wish you would
opinion
pass it
of
on to
your,
Frank.
of his
Definitely, tell him that
legal
it's,
expertise.
tell him that it's very poorly done for me, if you would. And if he wants to talk about it, I'll tell him why and what's the problem with it. I'm happy to tell him. But,
You want to tell the rest of it?
I'd be happy to. You wanna read through it?
Sure.
Take time? The following, well, we'll start with this. Black Oak Wind Farm seeks to construct and operate a 7-turbine wind-powered generating facility known as the Black Oak Wind Farm, to be located on leased private lands within the town of Enfield. The following community relations and complaint resolution procedure will ensure that concerns by neighbors regarding traffic, potential noise, shadow flicker, electromagnetic interference, and/or a reduction in property values associated with the development, maintenance, and operation of the project will be adequately mitigated and/or addressed in a timely and in an effective manner. And let's go back to that again. Will be adequately mitigated and/or addressed in a timely and effective manner. The complaint resolution procedure will also ensure that the project sponsor and the town work cooperatively together to resolve any complaints that may arise. Okay, remember those words, resolve, ensure, addressed in a timely manner. Many complaints relating to the development of the project can be proactively avoided by communicating widely and often with the town and the property owner. If the community is made aware ahead of time of activities that could cause disruption, such as construction noise or slow vehicles, community members can make plans to avoid such disruptions, and the number of disturbances and/or complaints will be lessened. Then there are 5 points that talk about the building process itself, and they have to do with communication with people, and that, I won't go into that because that's not all that relevant. Complaint resolution procedure. In order to resolve complaints in a prompt and effective manner, the complaint procedures should be followed as closely as reasonably possible under the circumstances. So, the complaint procedures should be followed as closely as reasonably possible under the circumstances. Do you know what kind of a slippery, slimy cop-out that is, right to say there? As closely as reasonably possible under the circumstances. That's saying, well, the circumstances were this, and this wasn't reasonable, and there are many, many companies that all they have to do is signal a financial need, and say the financial need is too burdensome, and we don't have to do it, it's not reasonable. That reasonable part is usually connected to dollars, and all you have to do is cite some lawsuit somewhere in the past that said, well, it was over this many dollars, therefore it's not reasonable anymore. So that's a cop-out right away. The complaint resolution procedure shall be in place for the life of the project. The complaint resolution procedure for residents of the town and property owner shall be as follows. Prior to construction, the project sponsor shall set up a toll-free number for use by the local residents that will be provided on both the project sponsor's website and the town's website. Complaints may be made to the following channels: calling a toll-free number, written complaint to the project manager, and written complaint to the board. In the event the project sponsor receives a telephone or written complaint, he shall inform the board in writing within 5 days. In the event the town board receives a written complaint, the town board shall inform the project manager within 10 days. A log will be kept by the project sponsor of the name and contact details of the complainant and the actions taken to resolve the complaint. The project sponsor shall make the log available to the town board for inspection upon request. Upon the sponsor's receipt of a complaint, either directly or through the town board, the sponsor shall promptly contact the complainant to investigate and resolve the issue to the satisfaction of both parties. In the event that the complaint is not resolved to the satisfaction of the complainant, or that an agreed-upon solution is not under development within 30 days of receipt of the complaint, the complainant may refer the matter to a mutually acceptable mediator or arbitrator. The project sponsor shall make every reasonable effort to resolve all complaints. So that says that if you make a complaint, if you have a problem, you may refer the matter to a mediator or an arbitrator, and the sponsor should be reasonable to resolve the complaint. It doesn't say what's going to happen. It doesn't say that anybody, when you talk about an arbitrator, you say that an arbitrator's solution is binding to all parties. That's part of what you say when you talk about arbitrators. And
Also says may instead of it will be, it should be more specific, like the other document we were looking at earlier saying, will be referred to a binding arbitrator, or an arbitrator.
Yeah. Typically, you start with a mediator, and if you can't find a reasonable solution to a mediator, you go to an arbitrator.
Yeah.
But then with the arbitrator, both parties agree to abide by the arbitration.
Yeah.
This does not say that. The project sponsor has conducted a visual impact assessment, shadow flicker study, acoustic study, microwave study in accordance with the town State Environmental Quality Review Act of the project. However, in the event of complaints relating specifically to sound, shadow flicker, and electromagnetic interference, the sponsor shall proceed as follows. Sound. In the event of a complaint about potential turbine noise, the sponsor shall conduct site-specific sound studies at that location related to the complaint. If the turbine noise exceeds the existing sound standards for the project based on the acoustic study and the acoustic study update, which we've done so many things and so many studies, I don't know what the acoustic study is. I don't know what the acoustic study update is. Maybe there's a clear thing about that, but it's not. Well, you start reading through those, you'll find lots of acoustic studies. There's some in the appendixes, there's some in the main part of it. There's lots of different acoustic studies, quote unquote, in there, okay? In the paperwork that we've gotten from Black Oak Wind Farm over the last 6 years, something like that.
Probably some of the comments too.
Yeah.
This is definitely more specific than the other one that was floating around from, the other one from Rock Hill, but there are some concerns about the specificity of certain things.
Well, it talks in more detail about things.
It talks in more detail.
The project sponsor shall determine which sound component is problematic and develop recommendations to correct the problem. The project sponsor shall have reasonable discretion in proposing effective responses to satisfy the complainant as permitted under applicable laws and regulations. So the applicable laws and regulations right now are the town of Enfield wind law, which has a 75, 85 decibel...
60 dBA above ambient.
Well, not what it really says. What it really says is something like ADL. Yeah, 60 dBA
60
above
dBA
ambient.
above ambient.
Yeah, right. So that has... If you tried to take that to court, it would be meaningless. It wouldn't mean anything there at all. They would just say, what are you talking about? Okay. The same with shadow flicker. The project sponsor shall have reasonable discretion in proposing effective responses to satisfy the complainant as permitted under laws and regulations. What does that mean? He shall have reasonable discretion. It really doesn't mean anything. It really has no legal recourse for anybody when they say they have reasonable discretion. It's just an argument in court over, well, we're being reasonable, they're not being reasonable, so somebody in court says, well, I don't know, it depends on who you get in the court. In the event of complaints relating specifically to a reduction in residential property value from property owners located within 1 mile radius of any wind tower as measured from the base of the wind tower at ground level to the nearest property line of the complainant's existing residence, the sponsor shall proceed as follows. If the complainant's property is sold at a price lower than the assessed price is set by the Tompkins County Assessment Department as a result of the property's proximity to a wind turbine that is part of the project, after the property has been in the market in the hands of a licensed real estate agent for 270 days consecutively, the project sponsor will guarantee payment to the complainant of such difference minus any real estate commission and normal costs associated with the sale. Kind of sounds good, it's a good start. If the complainant accepts any offer of purchase for the assessed price, the project sponsor shall not have any financial responsibility to the complainant. The complainant must have been the legal owner of the property at the time the town issued a permit for the project sponsor for the project. Okay, yeah, okay, no Johnny-come-lately. Such a complaint shall detail the property owner's efforts in attempting to sell the property, including the real estate agent, the assessed price of the property, the listed price of the property, the amount of time the property was on the market, and reasonable proof the purchaser would not pay the assessed price because of the property's proximity to a wind turbine. So, a reasonable proof, somebody has to write a notarized letter or something that says, we wouldn't buy it at this price because of the wind turbine. Well, that's iffy, because you're gonna get something like that. And it's more iffy that you're gonna be able to take that to court, and somebody's gonna say, no, that's not really reasonable proof that that's happening. So, and yeah, maybe Marguerite and what's his name would be happy to do it. I don't think some big corporation from Germany is gonna do that. They're gonna say, that's not reasonable. The project sponsor shall make a payment to the complainant within 30 days. If there's a dispute regarding payment, or payment does not occur within 30 days, either the project sponsor or the complainant may refer the matter to a mutually acceptable mediator or arbitrator. For what to happen? Doesn't say. If any complainant shall enter into a so-called good neighbor agreement, and this is why I'm saying this is not boilerplate, because this is specific to this project. This is Marguerite's name of her agreement. If any complainant shall enter into a so-called good neighbor agreement, wherein they allow the placement of a wind turbine closer than 1 mile, and/or if they should receive any compensation at all from the project sponsor, then they shall be excluded from the right to make such a complaint. So if
You don't think any other wind farm uses that term?
the good neighbor agreement,
You don't think any other wind farm?
I think that Frank Pavia put it in here because he'd heard the term from this one.
Well, I think that,
And I may be reading it wrong, it's true.
I think the last part of that is more troublesome. I mean, it's just because you sign an agreement, all of a sudden you give away your right to complain.
Well,
And maybe you do in the agreement, but
And the way that these agreements were signed, the way that they were presented to people and signed, was, to me, when I hear the stories about it.
That's not our business.
Oh, it is our business, yes.
It is not
It
our
certainly is our business.
business.
If they're being fraudulent,
It is
if they're
not
lying to
our
the people?
business.
you don't think it's our business?
well, what
To get in the way of two consenting adults to agree to a legal document is our business?
The implications of what happens from that document is our business, yes.
Well, my concern with that paragraph is if you sign a lease agreement, for your property, that's between you and the developer.
That's
And if you
right.
sign away your rights during that lease agreement, you should be fully aware that you're doing that, and maybe you sign away your rights to complain.
This is
I don't-
not
I don't-
the job of the
Right, I don't know, but,
town board.
but I don't remember the good neighbor agreement actually saying they give away, well, I don't know, maybe
Oh,
it
it
does.
doesn't.
It says it.
It says they give away their rights, yes.
Does the
Well, I've
complaint-
never seen it. It's not my business as an elected official to get in the way of two consenting adults entering into a contract, not municipal business.
But I would feel uncomfortable codifying it in that paragraph.
We were misled.
You are a consenting adult.
Ann, can I please say something?
No, not until public comment. Keep reading.
The complaint resolution procedure for the town shall be as follows. In the event the town submits a complaint to the project sponsor on behalf of the residents and the property owners of the town, the project sponsor shall promptly conduct any appropriate studies to determine the existence of any problem with the project. Such studies shall be conducted by independent consultants and the results made available to the town. If a problem is found to exist, the sponsor and the town will engage in discussions to develop and propose actions to resolve the problem. If a resolution that is reasonably satisfactory to the project sponsor and the town is determined, the project sponsor will deliver to the town a written statement of the resolution that will be incorporated by reference in any formal action necessary into the underlying permit as a condition of operation. Reasonably satisfactory. So what is the determinant on that? Reasonably satisfactory. The project sponsor shall then implement the resolution actions. In the event that an agreed upon solution is not under development with 30 days or receipt of the complaint, either the town or the project sponsor may refer the matter to a mutually acceptable mediator or arbitrator. Project sponsor shall make every reasonable effort to resolve the complaint. Again, nothing holding them responsible. Unless otherwise specified herein, any notification required by the complaint procedures described herein shall be made in writing and delivered by mail or mailed by first class mail to the town board or project sponsor at the following locations. So, that's
Well, thank you
what the...
for your concerns, or for expressing your concerns.
Well, we should know that this is a draft too, so.
Well, and it isn't from Black Oak. It has
It's
nothing
not
to
from
do with
Black
that.
Oak. Black
Yeah.
Oak is not saying this.
No, Black Oak is not saying that. One of our attorneys is putting that forth as a draft.
Right. What Black Oak said was, upon receipt of a question, the project manager will contact the individual and work with them in good faith to resolve the issue. That's what they said.
I think Frank Pavia's is a better place to start than that, but we can raise our concerns in the specific areas, but, and shore up the cans and the maze and the,
Well, he has to know that there's no legal
and be,
piece in that one.
and be very specific and not use, change that.
Okay,
language.
we are at our time limit, and so we are going to go into privilege of the floor. We'll do it by a raise of hands.
Couple questions. I am not an expert in finance by any means, but I'm just curious, and maybe you all don't know, why Marguerite would say that having the decommissioning plan frees up money for them to pay the town. That just doesn't
It's not a
drive me.
decommissioning plan.
But why? The resolution. How does having this pass free up money for Black Oak to reimburse the town?
I don't see them.
She didn't say.
I don't-
She did say that.
But she didn't say how it does that.
No,
Yeah.
but is that not curious?
It's curious. It is
It's very curious.
It is very.
Well, it's just saying, vote for me and I'll give you money. That's what it's saying.
Oh, really?
Well, that's what my interpretation of it.
Interesting.
That-
The other thing was, ultimately, when Labella does this work for the town and putting together the final findings or whatever they do, will Black Oak pay for that, reimburse the town, or does the
It's a
town?
reimbursable fee.
Okay. Oh, all right. And as far as the good neighbor agreement, my neighbor lady, 70-year-old lady from Russia, and her son were approached by somebody who told them, your neighbor signed, it's basically a done deal, you may as well sign it and get your $500. Well, we can see it's not a done deal. This was last fall. And so I am sure they had no idea what all was written in that good neighbor agreement. They only heard, you may as well get $500. Well, why not? So maybe that could be excluded from the paper you just read, Mike, and they could still have the buyout if needed, but take off any $500 that they maybe received. Because why should they not be able to take advantage of the buyout just because they signed a good neighbor agreement? Does that make sense?
The state has laws called consumer protection laws that deal with people that fraudulently get other people to sign contracts. To me, that makes it an issue for the town board if these people are breaking the law in terms of how they're getting these good neighbor agreements. That's an issue to me.
Amy?
Maybe Mahaffey, 115 West Enfield Center Road.
Which road, I'm sorry?
Enfield Center. On the corner.
West.
Yeah, I did
At
hear
the
what-
top of the hill. I think it's pretty clear that they were misled, given that Marguerite misled everybody in a town meeting and at the public meeting saying it's not a contract. So the fact that she was representing it as not a contract, and it was indeed a contract, I think is a pretty good legal standing, and maybe we just need to take it to the consumer protection place and everybody gets to rip up their contract because they have a united front saying they were misled. I know that happened with the land guys in a lot of different areas. where they were misleading people to sign contracts on their land.
The president of the board of the Black Oak Wind Farm said that it was a mistake.
Yeah. So
That
I
she
think
shouldn't
that,
have said that.
all these things are written in town meeting things, so I think it would be a no-brainer to be able to take that and rip up everybody's contract that wanted to rip it
Have
up.
you ever seen that agreement, Mike?
Oh, yes, I've read it many times.
I've never seen it. I've never looked for it. I couldn't find it.
It's a
I'll
two-page.
get you
Good.
something.
It's not my business.
The good neighbor agreement, you want it? I get it.
Henry would like a copy. Yeah.
And the second, I just want to applaud all the work that you're doing and ask you to keep doing it and to do your due diligence, as Mike was saying, in really making some hard suggestions and saying that this is something, even if you're saying this needs to be resolved before we can move forward, there needs to be some middle ground found. So with the flicker, the way Black Oak originally in the final EIS said, flicker, the homeowner can put shades up. Didn't even say they would pay for the shades, but that was their mitigation strategy. In terms of interference with TV and cable and radio and everything else, their mitigation was the homeowner can choose to go to another source, as opposed to they would pay if the homeowner had to go from an antenna to a cable service, they would pay the difference between what they were paying. So I think the mitigations this time really need to have some teeth and can't just say, well, the homeowner can deal with it, and here's how they can deal with it, because a lot of the places, I feel like that's what was done. So I would like you to encourage you to go through the comments and at least throw some of that, let our people know what direction you want to go with these comments, even if you don't write up the legalese, even if you don't find a solution. Maybe you could throw out some solution. So thanks.
Thank you. Jude?
So, I mean, Black Oak has made it kind of clear that they're struggling financially, or maybe they're just yanking us around, but either way, I think that it's in the board's interest and the town's interest for them to put up and explain how they're financing this thing. And it is, you're spending a lot of money and effort on a process and you have no idea whether they can afford to do this. They're talking to a German company. They're talking to Blackstone in New York. They're flailing around trying to find financing, and you don't know if they can build this thing. You should be talking to them and getting proof that they have the money to build this project before you continue down this road. And I would suggest that, this little game about, well, if you approve my decommissioning, I'll suddenly have money to pay your legal fees is a ploy on their part to delay, to get Michael off the board and put somebody else on the board who's going to approve the project, which I think is despicable.
Thank you.
Robert Tesori, 570 Black Oak Road. I just wanted to applaud the board for taking the time to go through these. You're trying to balance the legal and the personal, and it's not easy. I understand that. And everybody in this room is pretty much in the same boat with us. A little background on me that you probably know some of it, but we worked for 10 years to buy this piece of property. A lot of overtime, a lot of sweat equity. So that land and that house is more than 58-1-1 on the tax map to us. We made a huge investment in that. And by you folks taking the time to really review those things and understand the emotional part of what we're going through, I appreciate that. And our property isn't even the worst one. There's people down the road that I don't know how much money, if you could even offer money. Their parents are buried on the land. So it's not just land, it's fallow ground to them. Just to understand, I own a classic vehicle, and it is the last tangible thing that I have from my grandparents, and that's the way that I feel about this land. The other folks around here, some of them, their livelihoods attached to it, some of them have young children they want to raise. We want to pass it on to our children, and that's why we work so hard. So please consider really looking into this and getting everything straight, as Mike was saying. Thank you.
Thank you. One other final comment, Marcus?
Yeah, I wanna echo what, a number have said. I really thank you all for the effort you're putting in. I look at that stack and I think you guys got your work cut out for you. And thanks a lot for the effort of doing that. I do have some concerns, obviously. And one of the things that really I've mentioned a number of times in the past, and it just keeps coming back again, is, you know, they keep saying this is a community project, and this is, you know, we should be able to work on it as a community, and it should, you know, it's for the community, by the community. And yet we find out that, no, they act like a corporation. We find out that they were just about sold to one company already, and now they're gonna be sold to another. We have this resolution that's dangled out here, you know, it says, okay, if you pass this, we can pay you. I quite frankly don't believe that, because there's been so many instances that things have been said that turn out to be blatantly wrong. And I just want to encourage you to do your due diligence in setting up things ahead of time, because my question for you is, if this was a community company project, I'd be a little more comfortable with it. But do you think, for one instant, that a big, off-the-continent-based company is going to give one tiny little care down the road about my complaint, about your complaint, about whether or not you decide you want to change something in the decommissioning fund down the road? They're going to say, no, we're not going to agree to that. That's egregious. We're going to sue you. Is this little town going to be able to fight back against some big multinational company? Do we have the means to actually fight that? Think about that. You got to have things in place ahead of time, and it's got to be pretty tight, or you're going to get run over. We're going to get run over.
I just want to point out that when I voted to pass this resolution, I did that because it has everything in it that I was looking for, not because Marguerite said it would help her pay her bills. So, I mean, it's been edited, it's been changed, and it reads the way I wanted it to read.
Okay,
I was encouraging you to say that, but that's not what I based my vote on to approve it, and it didn't weigh in at all, actually.
Thank you.
There was one thing that didn't get put on the agenda, the seeker extension. We were gonna talk about it. We said at the last meeting, we were gonna talk about it.
I thought we were talking about it at the next regular meeting.
No, we actually said that we were gonna talk about it.
Well, read it.
That's what we were.
If you want to pass it tonight, read it.
Well, I'd like to talk about whether or not we would think about whether we wanna pass it tonight. You know, I thought we were.
No, it's too late.
Too late for what?
It's too late at night. It's
What?
too late at night.
When does it come up?
September 15th.
And our meeting is
I think it's the 14th.
14th, so we still have time to do that on that 14th.
I mean, I put it on the last agenda and you didn't want to talk about it, so next meeting.
We did talk about it last
Yes.
agenda. So what we
Yeah.
talked about was putting it on the agenda for this meeting. You didn't
Well,
put it
I
on the agenda for this meeting,
apologize
Ann.
for forgetting that.
Okay, so why don't you make up for the fact that you didn't put it on the agenda and do right by it then, instead of being a jerk about it like you're being right now?
I said, read the resolution and get on with it.
Yeah, I heard you say that. You're being a jerk about it. I'm on this board to talk with reasonable people about issues that are important to the town, not to be treated like somebody, well, read the resolution and get on with it. I don't like that. I don't like to be dealt with that way, and I don't like to be treated that way.
I apologize.
You want me to treat you that way from now on? No, I don't want to.
I apologize.
Is this something that everybody feels comfortable we can wait until the September 4th meeting to do? My understanding is that we needed to have a better sense of how we're going to deal with this, so we had a better sense of the timing. And I don't know that we've gotten a lot further in terms of knowing how we're going to deal with it
I
yet.
think, have we decided I mean, we spent a lot of time talking about how we're gonna do it, have we decided that we're actually following a certain way?
I don't think we made a decision on that, I didn't
We
hear
didn't
that.
come to a
We made a
decision.
decision.
Would it be more beneficial then to wait until the next meeting to decide how long it's gonna take us to deal with this before we decide and just keep changing these dates and keep changing the dates? I mean, we talk about helping Black Oak understand what timing they need to be and how they're gonna do. I would think that this would be important to them in terms of understanding what kind of a time frame we're dealing with. Thoughts? Anybody?
How long do we want to extend it for?
Well, it's the middle of August right now, and we have 1 month set right now. We have to do our part of it. We have to get it to Labella, whatever our part of it is. We have to get it to Labella and let them do their part of it. Then, assumably, we're gonna get it back from Labella and see if we like what they did, so we're gonna go back and do our part of it again. And if we need any changes, we need to go back to Labella and say, okay, we need to change this. This sounds like months worth of time to me, unless we're gonna do meetings every week or every 2 weeks or so. It sounds to me like a long time to do.
Especially if we wait for Black Oak to pay their bills before we, incur any more professional fees.
Well, and Black Oak hasn't done their responses either, and assumably we would wanna wait for Black Oak to do their responses to the comments as well.
Is it, does Black Oak need to respond?
They don't need to, no.
It's our, I mean, it's ultimately our document. There are comments that have been submitted, and we need to go through those comments and have responses to them. Doesn't mean that the developer goes through them and has responses to them.
No,
The
but
normal way is that the developer does do the initial and passes it on to
the lady from Labella was pretty clear about saying that she felt that an interaction between either the board in Black Oak or Labella in Black Oak is an important part of the process of dealing with the comments, and see what their willingness is, rather than to say, to try and make it a process where everybody actually communicates with each other and talks to each other and figures out what are some good answers, instead of just staying in each in their own little camp and shooting volleys at each other.
It's true, but I think it's important to recognize that it's our document, it's our responsibility to respond to
I
it.
agree.
And I worry about it being like the last one, where saying, you know, you did the Jedi mind trick. That's not an issue. That's not a thing. That's not a concern. That's not, I think it's us that has to figure out how to respond to them appropriately. I mean, if the developer wants to have some feedback on it, it's great, but ultimately, it's our responsibility to do that.
September, October, November, December, that's 4 months from now.
Yeah.
Where should I stop, do you think? I'm already at September, that's not gonna work, we don't think. Do I stop at October? Do I stop in November? Do I stop at December?
Can we extend it again?
Yeah.
I think we can extend indefinitely, although my understanding of the secret process is that we are supposed to include Black Oak in at least the communication process in terms of how we're doing this, so that they understand what we're doing, and
Probably a good idea.
they're not here to know about it, but we can certainly tell them about it. But I would think we would try as best we can at this point to say, how long is it likely they're gonna take us, and at least make our best guess toward what it would be as well.
I'm playing a devil's advocate a bit, especially seeing the last responses. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. We should include everyone in that process.
September is 1 month, October is 2 months, November is 3 months, December is 4 months.
We could have special meetings too, and we'll probably have to have special meetings to do that.
Should we take the middle ground and say November 15th, give us 3 months? Does that seem like will be enough time to do it?
No,
It won't be enough time, but we can.
December
extend it.
30th.
We can extend it further.
Or March, or January 15th, if you wanna keep it on the 15th.
We can just keep it before the end of the year.
Well, you can say 31.
Either way, it's fine with me. If we need 5 months, then we need 5 months. I would assume that you would want to be a part of the process, and you'll be here till December 15th, so.
Are you gonna run for the position
No,
again?
I don't have the capacity to do it.
So, should we make an initial December 15th and see what we can get done by then, so that at least
We can?
your expertise will be there for as long as possible, and we'll see if we can do it then, and
We can do that?
that makes sense to me, December 15th.
Fine.
Does that seem okay to everybody else? Do I need to read the whole resolution, Sue, or?
What does?
I'll find a copy of it.
It's in, yeah, the note, basically, it's seeker extension resolution 2016-50.
But it would be
You'll have to
something-
give a new number to this one.
And the resolution will be that we'll extend the time frame to complete the FCIS to December 15th, 2016.
Second,
Second.
discussion?
We already discussed it.
Call the vote.
Councilperson Bryant,
Aye.
Councilperson Carpenter,
Aye.
Councilperson Hanstein,
Aye.
Councilperson Miles,
Aye.
Supervisor Ryder.
Aye. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Anyone who wants tomatoes, please take them.
Oh, they're not oranges, huh?
I'm sorry, Sue, I don't grow any oranges, but they're heritage tomatoes.
Yeah,
No
well, maybe
pesticides.
close.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, I need that too. Okay.
Great, thanks.
Yep, yep.
No, I just wanted, I read it. Yeah.
Thanks, Virginia.
Please take as many as you want. You didn't need a handful.
Sooner or later.
Now, Mike, do you have 2 copies of that?
I have 2, do you want one?
Yes, one should be left at the town hall. Well, I'll take it to
Give it to you
town hall.
now.